I don't know what the reason was. I think relatives often do find it difficult. I remember when I filmed Isadora Duncan, there were some relatives of the Singer family who...
Remember Vanessa Redgrave? You won't believe how she looks now. Born while her father was playing Hamlet, her life was dramatic from day one. MI5 had files on her whole family. She sold her house to build a nursery school. Her Oscar speech caused death threats. Now, at 87, she appears in a wheelchair. After losing her daughter Natasha in a ski accident, she said, "Time does not heal." Her real life was more intense than any role she played. On the night of January 30th, 1937, right after a performance of Hamlet at the Old Vic, something unusual happened. Laurence Olivier came forward and told the audience, "Tonight, a great actress was born." He wasn't talking about the play. He was talking about the birth of Vanessa Redgrave, daughter of his co-star, Sir Michael Redgrave. That same night, Michael had gotten word that his wife, Rachel Kempson, was in labor. But instead of leaving, he stayed. Even though the stage managers offered to replace him, he said no. He finished the show, pouring everything into his role. Afterward, Olivier made the announcement on stage. From the very beginning, Vanessa's life felt more like a scene from a play than real life. Her father didn't just pass down talent, he passed down a sense of destiny. She grew up in Bedford House, a big old Georgian mansion in Chiswick Mall, right by the Thames. It wasn't just a home. It was a hub for British theatre's biggest names. People like Laurence Olivier, Vivien Leigh, and John Gielgud would gather there on Sundays. They'd read plays, argue about theater, and fill the rooms with energy. Vanessa was still a child, but she would sneak out of bed, sit on the grand staircase, and watch it all from above. She listened closely, scribbling notes and sketches in a notebook she hid under her pillow. One summer evening in 1944, Noel Coward spotted her on the landing. Instead of scolding her, he leaned in and whispered acting tips. Years later, Vanessa said that was her first real acting lesson. For her, theater wasn't something you learned in a class, it was life itself. But not all memories were warm. In 1940, when the bombing in London got worse, Vanessa, just 3 years old, was sent away with her brother, Corin. They went to live with relatives in Herefordshire. These people weren't actors. They didn't like make-believe or imagination. They called it sinful. Vanessa developed a bad stutter within weeks. She was lonely, scared, and cut off from everything she loved. So she started going to a nearby apple orchard alone, whispering poetry to herself, hoping it would help. And it did. The stutter faded, but the fear stayed. She called it a permanent sense of impending abandonment. It never fully left her and shaped how she acted for the rest of her life, with deep feeling and raw vulnerability. By the time she was 12, Vanessa had already learned how complicated grown-up lives could be. During a summer holiday in 1949, she was looking for paper in her father's desk and found a stack of letters. They weren't from her mother. They were love letters from men. Some were from playwright Noel Coward, others from a man named Bob Michel. She was too young to fully understand, but she knew it was something not meant to be seen. Michael Redgrave never spoke about his sexuality openly, but many in the theater world knew. Years later, Vanessa said her family was built on necessary fictions. That discovery stayed with her. It gave her a deep sensitivity to secrets, silences, and the gap between what people say and who they really are. She later said it shaped her choice of roles. She was drawn to characters with hidden depths, people who lived double lives. In 1954, at age 17, she joined the Central School of Speech and Drama. It was supposed to be a step toward greatness. But Vanessa didn't like being told how to speak or how to act. When her teacher demanded she use traditional received pronunciation for Shakespeare, Vanessa refused. She said it sounded fake. In one performance, she did Lady Macbeth in her own voice. That didn't go well. She got in trouble. They even threatened to expel her. Instead of backing down, she staged a student production of The Seagull with a modern, stripped-down approach. That same year, she secretly auditioned for the Stratford Memorial Theatre. Her father had warned the director not to cast her. He wanted her to succeed on her own, not by name. But Vanessa got a small role in Hamlet anyway. It caused a rift between them. They didn't speak for a while. Eventually, they acted together in A Touch of the Sun in 1957, and the distance between them began to close. In the late 1950s, she started working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Her big break came in 1961 when she played Rosalind in As You Like It. She was tall, 5'11", which made some people doubt she could be a leading lady. But once she stepped on stage, those doubts disappeared. Critics raved. Bernard Levin called her a creature of fire and light. She wasn't just an actress anymore. She was a star. In 1967, she was nominated for an Oscar for Morgan, going up against her own sister Lynn, who had been nominated for Georgie Girl. Two Redgraves, both up for the same award. It was almost too perfect. Vanessa's early stage work had built a strong foundation. She had already appeared in A Midsummer Night's Dream and Coriolanus with Laurence Olivier. In 1960, she acted alongside her father in The Tiger and the Horse. In 1966, she starred in The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. That same year, she won Best Actress at Cannes for Morgan and earned her first Oscar nomination. Her acting style was always intense. She believed in putting truth first. During her BAFTA speech in 2010, she said Maria Callas once told her, "Put the truth of your thoughts and feelings first. The sound of your voice will follow." That stuck with her. The film Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment, wasn't like other movies. It was wild, political, and strange. She played an upper-class woman divorcing a working-class artist. The movie was full of surreal scenes and heavy communist messaging. In one scene, Morgan plants a flower bed shaped like the hammer and sickle. Critics were divided. Some thought it was trying too hard. But Vanessa's performance stood out. She got her first Oscar nomination and won at Cannes. She wasn't afraid to take risks. If the story was bold and meaningful, she was in. Later that year, she appeared in A Man for All Seasons. Her role as Anne Boleyn was small, but meaningful. She didn't even take money for it, she did it for fun. The film won 6 Oscars, including Best Picture. Vanessa didn't need to be the lead to make a mark. Her presence added weight, even in a few short minutes. It showed she could jump from risky experimental films to award-winning dramas without missing a beat. In 1966, while filming Camelot, Vanessa met Italian actor Franco Nero. At first, he wasn't impressed. He saw her in jeans and glasses and thought she wasn't right for the role. But when she invited him to dinner, everything changed. He showed up at her house and saw her transformed, elegant, magnetic. That night began a relationship that would span decades. They had a son, Carlo, in 1969. They broke up, got back together, dated other people, and finally married on New Year's Eve in 2006. Franco once said, "When we speak about love, it's never too late." They even played reunited lovers in Letters to Juliet, a movie that mirrored their real lives. She was one of the most respected actresses in Britain, but by the end of the 1970s, Vanessa Redgrave had become one of the most controversial names in the world. Her transformation from stage royalty to political revolutionary didn't happen overnight, but once it started, there was no going back. The British government had been watching her for years. Not just her, but her whole family. MI5 had a 105-page file on her father, Sir Michael Redgrave, starting in 1940. They tracked his possible communist ties and even monitored the Redgrave home, quietly asking the local police to report anything suspicious. When he met British defector Guy Burgess in Moscow, MI5 sent an informant to dig for details. But by the late 60s, their attention shifted fully to Vanessa. Her politics were loud, open, and unapologetically radical. The United States government even confirmed she was under close and sustained surveillance for years. In 1991, she found a hidden listening device in her home. She was furious. She filed a formal complaint, convinced it had been planted by the British security services. She wasn't just talking about politics, she was living it. In 1970, she held a fundraiser in London for the Black Panther Party, an event that stirred controversy far beyond Britain. It wasn't just about raising money, it was about making a statement. She clashed with the Panthers over methods, but that didn't stop her from being seen as a revolutionary figure. That same year, she joined the Workers' Revolutionary Party. It was a small Marxist group in Britain, but Vanessa brought it global attention and money. Her brother Corin was with her. They didn't just support the party, they funded it. In 1975, Corin bought a house in Derbyshire called White Meadows Villa. They turned it into a political training center. Soon, stories started to swirl. Actress Irene Gorst claimed she was held there against her will. A lawsuit followed. And even after the party's leader, Jerry Healy, was expelled for alleged sexual assaults against at least 26 women, Vanessa stayed loyal to him. Eventually, she too was kicked out of the party. But she didn't walk away quietly. She sued to get back the properties she had funded, and won. The party's printing firm was forced to shut down. Her radicalism wasn't just limited to the UK. In 1968, she took part in a massive protest outside the United States Embassy in London against the Vietnam War. While others were yelling outside, she walked right into the embassy to deliver a formal protest letter. A few years later, she did something few expected. She sold her house and used the money to build a nursery school, then donated it to the state. And after the 1973 Old Bailey bombing, when suspects were arrested, she offered her own home as a place for them to stay if they were released. They weren't, but she made the offer anyway. In 1977, she made a documentary called The Palestinian. It followed the activities of the PLO in Lebanon and showed her support for Palestinian causes. That film changed everything. Jewish groups, especially in the United States, saw it as anti-Israel. The Jewish Defense League burned effigies of her in protest. They called her Arafat's whore and firebombed a theater in Los Angeles that planned to show the film. Her Oscar nomination for Julia in 1978 made it worse. When she showed up at the ceremony, she was surrounded by security. Some say she wore a bulletproof vest, though that was never confirmed. Then came the speech. She won Best Supporting Actress. And on live television, she said the words that shocked Hollywood. "You have refused to be intimidated by the threats of a small bunch of Zionist hoodlums." The crowd gasped. Some booed, but she didn't flinch. It lasted only about 34 seconds, but it became one of the most infamous moments in Oscar history. Not everyone clapped. Screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky, who won that night for Network, went on stage later and said, "I'm sick and tired of people exploiting the Academy Awards for their own propaganda. The audience applauded. It was a direct shot at Redgrave, and it stuck. After that night, Hollywood quietly closed its doors to her. Studios didn't hire her. She lost roles. A Holocaust miniseries was canceled. Even when she sued over a canceled theater tour in 1991, the ruling said she wasn't blacklisted, but she called it de facto blacklisting. Producers called her an insurance liability, not for drugs or scandal, but for politics. Behind the scenes, Jane Fonda wasn't much friendlier. While they filmed Julia, Fonda barely spoke to her off camera. The two actresses played close friends in the film, but on set, they used assistants to communicate. They agreed on almost nothing. The director said they managed to work together because they only focused on the script. Even as her film career took hit after hit, Vanessa didn't slow down. She and Corin founded the Marxist Party in 1987 after the WRP fell apart. That party lasted until 2004. She never apologized for her politics. Not when her name made headlines, not when her Oscar speech was rebuked, and not even when her career suffered because of it. In 1980, Vanessa Redgrave's career had hit a rough patch. She was known for her talent, but her political activism had made her controversial. That same year, Tennessee Williams reached out to her. He was also struggling. His fame had faded, and Hollywood had moved on. He offered her a script called Stopped Rocking, about a woman locked in an asylum by her husband. Redgrave thought it was brilliant, but she also admitted, "Nobody wanted me very much either." It was a meeting of two artists who had both been cast aside. Williams died in 1983, but Redgrave didn't let go of the connection. In 1988, while researching her role in Orpheus Descending, she found a reference to a forgotten play of his called Not About Nightingales. It had been written in 1938 and never produced. Most people would have moved on, but she didn't. She kept searching. For years. Eventually, she convinced Williams's literary executor to dig up a copy in the early 1990s. She read it and knew it had to be seen. In 1999, she co-produced its Broadway premiere. It became a hit and helped bring Tennessee Williams back into the spotlight. And it all started because one forgotten artist believed in another. In 1992, Redgrave appeared in Howard's End, a film based on the novel by E.M. Forster. She played Ruth Wilcox, the quiet but powerful matriarch. Her character's death triggers the entire story. Redgrave's presence in the role was quiet but unforgettable. The film became a major success, and Emma Thompson even won an Oscar for her performance. There were rumors that Redgrave gave up her salary, $750,000, for charity. But there's no proof of that. Still, her role gave the film its soul. It felt like everything she had been through added something invisible to her performance. Then, in 1996, Redgrave did something nobody expected. She joined the cast of Mission Impossible. It was loud, flashy, and full of explosions, the opposite of her usual work. Tom Cruise had just launched his own production company, and the film had a massive $70 million budget. There were rumors about arguments, especially over Redgrave's casting. Some claimed director Brian De Palma was against it because of her political history. But none of that seems to be true. What is true is that she played Max, the mysterious arms dealer, and she did it with a cool, chilling grace. The film made $457.7 million worldwide, and Redgrave, even in a Hollywood blockbuster, still stood out. In 1998, she starred in Mrs. Dalloway, playing Clarissa Dalloway, a woman looking back on her life. She wore pale green and a hat with yellow feathers. She walked through London's Bond Street, haunted by memory. She had no need for extreme method acting, no wild dieting or strange routines. She simply became the character. Critics called her performance transcendent. It was proof that she didn't need tricks. She only needed a story worth telling. And in 2003, after decades on stage and screen, she finally won her first Tony Award. She played Mary Tyrone in Long Day's Journey into Night, one of the most difficult roles in American theater. Her performance was raw and unforgettable. It started like any other day. On March 16, 2009, Natasha Richardson was taking a ski lesson at Mont Tremblant in Canada. It was just a beginner slope. She fell, but it didn't seem serious. She even laughed afterward, told the ski patrol she was fine. No ambulance, no panic, just a bump on the head. But inside her brain, something silent had already begun. A slow, deadly bleed. An hour later, back at the hotel, she started to complain of a headache. Then it got worse. Then she collapsed. By the time she was flown to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York, her family had gathered. Vanessa Redgrave, Jolie Richardson, and her husband, Liam Neeson. They stayed with her as machines kept her body alive. Natasha never woke up. 2 days after the fall, on March 18, 2009, she was gone. She was only 45. The cause was an epidural hematoma, a hidden brain bleed, the kind of injury that can kill before you even know you're in danger. The family released a short statement, full of shock, full of heartbreak. The world had lost a gifted actress. They had lost a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother. Vanessa Redgrave never fully recovered. Years later, she said, "Time does not heal." For her, grief didn't fade. It lived on every day. Just before the accident, she had been performing in The Year of Magical Thinking, a play about a mother grieving her daughter. And she was preparing to star alongside Natasha on Broadway. The timing was cruel. It felt like life had played a trick too painful to name. But instead of letting the pain close her off, Vanessa said it made her more aware, more caring. She said she now treasures life more. Every moment, every small thing. Liam Neeson was the one who had to make the hardest decision. He was told Natasha was brain dead. In an interview years later, he said they had made a deal long ago. If either of them was ever in that state, they'd let go. And that's what he did. He leaned over her hospital bed and said, "Sweetie, you're not coming back from this." Her heart, kidneys, and liver were donated. They saved 3 lives. Neeson said she would have liked that. She would have wanted to help. After that, Liam had to keep going. He had to raise their sons, Mikial and Daniel, alone. He didn't want to fall into sadness. He kept working. He said, "I'm not good without work. I just didn't want to wallow." Today, both boys live close to him in New York. They've grown up, but the family bond remains tight. Jolie Richardson, Natasha's sister, said the loss changed them. It didn't make them stronger or weaker, just different. But through that pain, the family came together. They supported each other. They reformed. Jolie helped raise Natasha's sons. She says Natasha is still with her, always, in her heart, in her thoughts, even in silence. Years after the loss, Jolie shared something simple but powerful. She said, "Try to find the joy in life. We're so lucky to be here." And that's what the Redgrave family did. They held on to each other. They found meaning in small joys, and they never forgot, not even for a moment. At 80 years old, Vanessa Redgrave didn't slow down. Instead, she picked up a camera and made her first film. It was a documentary called Sea Sorrow, And it wasn't just a project, it was personal. The film told the story of refugees. What pushed her to make it was a photo. A little boy, just 3 years old, named Alan Kurdi. He had drowned in the sea. His tiny body was found lying face down on a beach in Turkey. Redgrave saw that image and couldn't let it go. She said it broke her heart, and she had to do something. This wasn't the first time she tried to help refugees. Years ago, she had put on plays to raise money for the British Refugee Council. She even donated her own money. But this time, she felt the world needed to see the suffering, not just hear about it. Her film also brought up her own childhood. During World War II, she had been evacuated to the countryside in England. It was safe and peaceful. But kids today, fleeing war, don't get that same protection. She remembered how she and another evacuee once put on plays and charged half a penny to raise money for sailors who were delivering food during the war. That spirit had stayed with her whole life. While many celebrities stick to speeches and events, Vanessa went further. In 2016, she supported the Bar Human Rights Committee as they observed the destruction of the refugee camp in Calais, known as the Jungle. It was a disaster. The French authorities tore down the camp between October 24th and 28th. Around 1,900 children were living there without their families. They were terrified. The officials judged their ages just by looking at their faces. No proper checks, no explanations. Doctors Without Borders and the UN refused to take part because the whole thing was so messy and cruel. Fires broke out. Thick black smoke rose from the camp. It was chaos. Children had no idea where they would go next. The British and French governments were both blamed. The UK Home Office was slammed for rushing through the process unfairly. One report even called the whole thing rigged and unjust. Redgrave didn't just watch from the sidelines. She stood with the people trying to expose what was really happening. Redgrave had always been political, and that didn't stop as she got older. Back in 1999, she was offered a damehood by Tony Blair's government. She turned it down. Some said it was because of the monarchy, but she later explained that wasn't true. Her problem was with Blair. He had pushed the UK into war based on lies. She said she couldn't accept an honor from a man who did that. The Iraq War hadn't even started yet, but she already knew she couldn't support him. It wasn't about the Queen. In fact, she had accepted an honor in 1967, a CBE, long before Blair. She even said the royal family could be a force for good. But her political views, especially her ties to the far-left Workers' Revolutionary Party in the 60s and 70s, may have made her a controversial figure. For years, she was ignored by the honors system. But in 2022, she finally accepted a damehood, this time with no Tony Blair in sight. Vanessa Redgrave was 78 when her heart suddenly gave out. It was a heart attack, serious, terrifying, and nearly fatal. She later said, "Because of wonderful surgery, I am here." But that wasn't the hardest part. While lying in the hospital, recovering, she admitted, "I wanted to die." It was her daughter who kept her going, gave her a reason to fight. Heart disease doesn't always get attention, but in the UK, it kills more than twice as many women as breast cancer every year. Vanessa had beaten it, but it left a mark. She's now 87, still showing up in public, but often in a wheelchair. Just a few weeks ago, she appeared at the Shakespeare Birthday Award celebration. The white trouser suit she wore that day stood out, elegant and proud, even though she needed help moving. She accepted the award with grace. Then she surprised everyone. She thanked King Charles. She spoke about his love for Shakespeare. And then she recited Sonnet 18, the one that begins, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" She said she first heard it from an 11-year-old refugee in Lebanon back in the 1980s. That memory had stayed with her all this time. Earlier in 2024, she was part of a documentary called Merchant Ivory. Getting her to agree wasn't easy. Director Stephen Sousey said her interview was the toughest to get, and even when she showed up, she didn't hold back. When he asked about her difficult time filming the Bostonians, she cut him off. "Darling, films are not family effects. Please don't let's go down that road." But later, after it was all done, she softened. "Stephen, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed talking about Merchant Ivory. Those years were so important to me."